All right, so let's do the back panel. So on the far left-hand side, you have the talkback area. So you have an external talkback mic input if you want to use a different mic located somewhere else in the room other than the one here. You have a foot switch jack, so you can enable that talkback mic separately from an external foot switch if you want. So we use that in studios all the time, so the client can trigger talkback and you don't have to as the engineer. And then you have a mono output for that microphone. After that, you have an output for the cue section. So if you decide that you don't want to use the built-in headphone amps on the device for running the cues, you can send that cue output to a separate pair of outputs here, and that can go to a patch bay or a separate power amp or headphone amp or whatever you want. From there, you have the speaker outputs. So you have one mono sub or mono speaker output, and I'll show you how I'm using that when we get to the front panel. And then you have 3 stereo pairs, speaker A, speaker B, and speaker C, and those can all be on at the same time, as you'll see when we get to the front panel. After that, you have the input section, and that will finish out the back panel. So inputs 1 and 2 are stereo inputs on balanced XLR jacks. Input 3 is a unbalanced coaxial RCA input. The digi input is SPDIF. And then finally on the front panel, which you can't see right now, there is an aux input for your phone. To get to the speaker trimming functionality I talked about, it's actually on the bottom to save space. So there are 7 trim pots for the 7 speaker outputs. You have 1 for the sub and mono channel, and then 2 each for speaker A, speaker B, and speaker C. And if you want some recommendations on how you might go about calibrating your speakers, you can check out Drawmer.com for the manual for the MC3.1. So let's go through the top panel. So we'll start with the speaker outputs. You can see here in speaker select area, you have 3 stereo pairs, A, B, and C, and 1 mono output. On this box, it is labeled sub, but on some of the other monitor controllers in the line, it is labeled sub or mono. It's just a mono output. You can use it however you like. So for me, I've got NS10s on number A. I have my lovely ATCs on number B. I have my stereo subwoofers on number C, and then I have my mono Orotone in the middle on sub. So if I want to share the subwoofer and my near fields, there's the subwoofer, and I just turn on NS10s or ATCs. It's just that easy. On the left-hand side here, if we look at the actual sets of inputs, as you remember from the back panel, we have 5 inputs. We have balanced inputs on 1 and 2. We have a coaxial RCA analog input on 3. We have SPDIF digital input on Digi here. And we also have the aux input. And this is sort of important because we're all looking for convenience these days. There are a couple of manufacturers that are now featuring Bluetooth on their monitor controllers. And it's really convenient. I totally get it. I mean, it's, you know, your iPad and your phone, whether it's Android or iPhone, they all have Bluetooth, so it makes it easy. However, it isn't always lossless Bluetooth audio, meaning that it might actually not sound exactly the same as the equivalent digital output or line output. So for me, I'd rather take my phone, which is a modern iPhone, and have this little adapter that goes from Lightning to 1/8 inch and go into this guy, which is likely to be better sounding because it's a line output and analog than a Bluetooth equivalent would be. So just food for thought. After that, you have the talkback section here. So you have an external microphone input, if you remember, and you also have the talkback active button. The talkback microphone is right here, and you've got the talkback level right here. Then you've got the actual level of the cue inputs. And speaking of cues, you have all of the individual inputs for the cue section as well. So you can have different things selected for your talent than selected for you. So a traditional scenario would be that you're sitting here listening to input 1 as your output from your DAW, and your talent is listening to input 2, which is probably outputs 3 and 4 from your interface to show for a cue input or something like that. Over here on the right-hand side, you have your 2 headphone amplifiers, and they can be sourced either from the main input or from the cue input, which is pretty cool. And you have your headphone outputs down here on the bottom, right on the front panel. They're actually big, they're juicy, they sound really nice. After that, you have monitor and mix check stuff, which is basically for the control room behavior. So in the cut section, you can mute the left speaker, you can mute the right speaker, or you can mute all the speakers, which is nice. You have a mono button for taking your stereo field and collapsing it to mono, which is super important for checking mono compatibility for mixes. It's still important for restaurants and all that other stuff. And then you have the dim button for reducing the output of the speakers by a set amount so that you can talk or take a call or talk to somebody. And then you have something very unique for this box. So you actually have a band solo section. So you can solo just the low end frequencies. You can solo just the mid-range frequencies. You can solo just the high end. So if you want to hear what it sounds like, what's going on in mid-range only, you can solo that frequency. It's a very unique feature, and I don't know of that occurring on any other devices except for Drawmer. You have a phase reverse for the speakers, and you also have a swap. So you can swap left and right. If you're trying to find a problem in a speaker, for instance, if one speaker seems to be ringing or rattling, you can just reverse that direction so that that input will be coming out of the other speaker to see whether it's the speaker hardware or whether it's actually your mix, which is really important. After that, we have the master volume knob, a nice easy potentiometer to touch, but it also has a neat preset level feature. So there's a set screw on the front panel, and you turn this on, you can set this to be whatever level that you like it to be, and anytime you push the button, it defeats or bypasses whatever value you have here. So if you've got this really cranked up a bit, and then you've got a preset level that's actually quite quiet, you turn this on, it automatically sets the output to be whatever the value is here. So it's super useful for things like post-mixing, where you're trying to mix at a general 85 dB value, or if you're mixing a record and you've got it where it seems like it's got a sweet spot, where you're listening to the kick drum, for instance, at the beginning of the bridge, and you've gone off to work on something else, and you come back and you want to make sure the kick drum is still working the same way it was, well, just preset the level, and no matter what's going on here, as soon as you push that, you're back to this preset level. Super powerful feature. That should give you a good idea of why this Drawmer stuff is so good. There are a number of different models in the line, and they vary from inputs and outputs and size and shape and talkback and cue functionality. So you should be able to find something that fits your needs and your budget fairly easily. If you want more information, everything you need is online at TransAudioGroup.com. So simply find the name Drawmer from the list of brands on the left-hand side of the screen, and it will take you to the entire line of amazing Drawmer products. And of course, while you're there, make sure you check out everything else that TransAudio has to offer. There's some amazing gear up there. So thanks very much for your time. See you again. Cheers.